Hey, my name is Renee. I am a yoga teacher, student, and entrepreneur, and I'm in Halifax, Nova Scotia. I don't know if I agree with that statement completely because there's a lot that goes into that statement. I don't think that women are harder to please than men, first of all. I think that women are harder to maintain long term, and men often fall short in the way that they give themselves and their emotions to that person that they want to be with. So women are harder to please because what we think as traditional, women who want to be in a relationship long term, have kids, but also because we've evolved and now we're in a modern state where women have a lot more rights and a lot more freedom, and they want to be able to exercise that. So that might be one of the reasons. I think that it is perceived that women are harder to please than men. And don't get me wrong, this could be some women are harder to please than men, but overall I believe that actually it's the opposite. Those one or few women that are hard to please is because they are lacking some sort of security within that relationship.
Hi everyone, my name is Michelle. I'm 24 years old and I am from Kenya. Why are women harder to please than men? When we do hear this question, it's easy to jump to perhaps sexist conclusions that, oh, women are just so much harder to please than men because they're more emotionally demanding, or maybe some people could argue financially demanding, and we could say men are just generally, it's easier to satisfy them in general. I'm not saying I agree with that, I'm just saying I think we often tend to do. But I do want to share something that I did learn back when I was in uni, in my second year, in my social psych class. I learned that women are more selective than men, and there's a scientific reason for this. I learned that women need to be more selective than men because women are carefully picking a mate for their children. And so we're looking for someone who is going to be able to provide food, someone who's able to provide support, someone who's also able to provide security, and that's protection over the offspring that we do have. And I suppose in today's modern world, obviously, someone who is able to provide financial support. And so women need to be more selective than men because the cost for women is much higher than men. We're investing ourselves into a mate who we hope is going to be around for the long run. And even genetically speaking, women have to be more selective as well for all those other reasons because we want the children to be healthy, right? And so I think it's really interesting when we look at it like that, that it's so easy to say, oh, women are so much harder to please than men, but actually there's a biological reason that goes way back that benefits us in an evolutionary sense, that helps us to have healthier children or to have our genes passed on like for a longer amount of time. So
hi, my name is Rachel. I am 20 years old. I'm a third-year student at St. Mary's University. As a woman, I don't necessarily believe that we are harder to please, but I do believe that we can be perceived as harder to please. I think that this is because our criteria when searching for a partner is quite different than that of men, and it seems more difficult to attain. Women ask for a lot of balance and stability, which is inherently a really hard thing to have. We want men that are emotionally available, have good communication skills with a job and a car, a man that has good hygiene, cares about his appearance, dresses well, sometimes, well, I guess most of the time, taller than us, stronger than us, can listen when it's needed, provides reassurance when necessary, shows affection in ways that we appreciate, really takes the time to get to know us, lays good pipe, is confident but not too cocky, and still funny and interesting. And these are a lot of things to ask for. But I believe that these desires come from the idea that women search for partners with intention rather than, I guess, in comparison to men. I've noticed that a lot of men end up finding good partners by accident. Just to provide some example, 2 out of 3 of my relationships started with a man pursuing me purely because of my looks. This is not to say that women don't go for looks as well. I think that it's really important, especially for me, I think that it's really important to be attracted to the person that you want to be with. But I've also noticed that women allow these physical aspects to take second place in comparison to other attributes of a person. I'd like to say that the men I've dated stuck around because I have qualities that surpass my physicality. Sometimes it's like the men in my life, like my friends and just people I've interacted with, find good women by accident, and they don't really realize that women can be more than just pretty with a big bum or like big boobs or something. Often I find that men look for mostly physical aspects in a woman, especially when I've talked to certain male friends about like a type. They often list off like big boobs, big bum, small waist, pretty face, you know, and she can cook. And that's like the only attribute that's not physical that they look for in a woman. Far less often I've heard the want of more non-physical characteristics, and you know, reviewing the differences between what I've seen men want and what I've seen women want. Of course it seems way harder to please us because we have so many more expectations. So if we have already laid more expectations, it's harder to keep up with that. So maybe it's not the case that women are harder to please, maybe it's the case that men are a little too easy to please.
So for me, I think that two of the biggest things when thinking about what is important in a partner, like what qualities do I really value in a partner? I think that one of the biggest things for me is to make sure that I can sit my partner in a room or in a situation, whatever, with my family and friends, and knowing that it's going to be okay. I don't have to worry about them. I've been with quite a few people in the past where my family and friends were just like, girl, what are you doing? So they're usually pretty good judges of character, I have to say. So I really value their opinion. I really value what they think of my partner, and I really take into consideration what their thoughts are on that, because they have had my back through a lot, and they can usually spot a good friend or a good partner way sooner than I ever can. So that is something that I do really hold dear to my heart. And just knowing that, you know, they're gonna get along and we can spend time together and it be enjoyable and not filled with any worry or awkwardness. Another thing that I think that I really value in a partner is for them to be genuine and empathetic and compassionate. So I really believe that if somebody practices those three things in their everyday life, then hopefully that's going to translate into the relationship as well. Those are three things that I really value and try to practice within my everyday life. I think finding others that share those similar values is really important and is really meaningful, and the way that somebody treats folks that they just run into in their everyday life can really speak volumes.
So the second question is, how can a man please you? And when I hear this question, I like to think of it, what qualities do I look for in a man when I'm picking? So I think that number one, an openness to growth is super important. I think that it's really valuable to look at where we fall short and how we can do better, how we can be better as human beings in our relationships, as partners, or even if you're a parent, as parents to our children, as friends, whatever, everything. So openness to growth is number one always for me, and I want to know how you can be better, that you want to be better, and that I know you're not perfect and I don't expect perfection from you, and that'll never happen, but I think having an open mind to growth. Number two would be having self-awareness. I think that ties into growth too, because then it allows us to see where we do mess up or where we're not 100%. And without self-awareness, I don't think that we can always grow. Number three would probably be having patience. I know I struggle a lot with patience for myself. And so I think having a man who is very patient with me and with themselves and just in general, I think that kind of helps influence me to then work towards that and to have that kind of patience as well. Number four would probably be a lighter one, and that is humor, someone who's funny. I think humor goes a long way and it helps. We need to keep things light sometimes, and it's good if you have someone who makes you laugh. I think laughing is one of the best medicines, and that's super important too.
I think that I am easy to please. I am low maintenance, but with like an anxious attachment style. So that just means that I need reassurance. I would say that I am getting better with how I feel about that. So when it comes to what a man could do to please me is really just being autonomous while also motivating me. I think that I'm really interested in when men are ambitious and have their own things going on, when they're confident in what they're doing, but that they want to be with me and they want to help me through what I'm working on, or are interested in what I'm working on. I think that the whole notion of pleasing a partner or the opposite sex is a bit too mundane for me. And I don't think that we should be aiming to please anybody but ourselves. And instead, how do we cooperate or collaborate in a healthy and loving way that supports each other?
In what ways can a man please you? I am a woman that appreciates to be thought about. I can be pleased by a man when he shows me that he's just thinking of me. Simple as that. I truly appreciate small acts of service. For example, sometime earlier this year it was raining and the person that I was seeing offered to walk me to my car with an umbrella so I wouldn't have to get wet or be alone in my walk. That meant a whole lot to me. You know, to put yourself in that situation of like, it's a pretty minor inconvenience to be in the rain, but it was still very sweet that he offered. I can be pleased with small gifts, like if you get a coffee and you also give me one because you know you're gonna see me later, or you know you're just thinking about me. I think that small gifts like that are really, really sweet because I like to know that I was on your mind. Recently I went on a date with a person, and the person I went out with noticed that I was super uncomfortable with everything going on around me because I get really overwhelmed with loud noises and such. And they really, really saw that and they said, I know that you're overwhelmed. We can have a moment of silence. And he just was quiet and I was quiet and we walked in a little bit of silence until we got out of the heavy traffic, and then he talked again. And I really appreciated that because he could tell how uncomfortable that I was. He made an effort to make me feel okay, which is great because I felt very seen, and I think that's really important. I was incredibly pleased in that moment because the person made the effort to understand me and my feelings, and they knew how to make the situation more comfortable for me. These displays of empathy are incredibly important to me because I know that I try my best to treat all the people in my life really well, so it makes me really happy when another person can do that for me too.
Men can get better in their relationships and interactions with women by listening more, by being attentive, by asking what that person needs. So something that I've been doing a lot more recently, instead of just dumping whatever I think that person wants to hear, is asking them, hey, what do you need in this moment? A friend came to me recently and they were like venting, and I was like, do you want me to vent with you, or do you want me to give you advice, or do you want me to just listen? And I find that that's really helpful, especially for women, where men tend to over-explain things that we just don't care about.
I think the number one thing that comes to mind is emotional intelligence. I think for a long time men have been told not to be emotional. Within society, culture, religion, everything, men are told don't be emotional and shove those feelings down. And because of that, I think men have not had the opportunity to practice their emotional intelligence and to understand a little bit more about emotional intelligence and how they can have it and how that can allow them to then interact better with women. We know that we're more emotional than men. We operate this way. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think that men just need to be more aware about that. Like practicing that skill set of emotional intelligence, it doesn't just help you with women, it helps you in every single relationship, including the relationship with yourself. So my answer to that would simply be men need to be more aware of having emotional intelligence and then actively practicing. And the great thing is we're not born with emotional intelligence, we learn it, and so there's really no excuse. And just, learning to have greater sense of emotional intelligence, that would be my answer.
In my relationships with men that I value the most, they allow me to express my thoughts and opinions without interruption. I feel as if they truly listen to me and value what I have to say. They seem to have a genuine interest in my ideas and also provide me with different perspectives or offer me reassurance, I think that men can improve their relationships and interactions with women by breaking down these interactions as person to person rather than man to woman. It's a very difficult thing to notice how tightly gender biases have a grip on day-to-day conversation. So my advice is to take a step back in your interactions with women and try to see them as your equal. Take the time to listen to them as you would another man. It's very important to have these relationships with women that are based on a platonic foundation of genuine interest, rather than a relationship that exists because of the possibility of it becoming more intimate. It may be useful to ask yourself questions that reveal the intention behind your action, like, am I having this conversation with this woman because I'm genuinely interested in what she has to say, or am I having this conversation because I know that if I listen, she'll be more comfortable with me and I can finally make a move? I've learned so much from my platonic relationships with men, and they are so important to me because they make me feel human. They make me feel seen as a person rather than a possibility for sex or romance. On the other side of that, they prove to me that there are men out there that are able to see women as genuine friends and people, and not just an opportunity. So the most important attribute to remember when trying to better relationships is self-awareness. I'm certain that there are men out there that don't want to be whittled down to just a dick. You know, as if that's all you're good for. You have personality and interest, thoughts and ideas that I'm sure you'd love to share, but you aren't able to do that or explore those things if you're only seen as an opportunity. So it's not fair to do that to us either. So that is my general advice.